they are a team that it almost tortures me when I'm trying to think analytically about them, because there's so many things I like. Like, I actually find them even one of the most entertaining teams to watch. I really enjoy watching them play because they've got such a great distribution of all the fragging. They play tactically. They clearly make like prepared rounds, but then they also do mid-round reads. Like, tons of the players can win clutches. Like, there's a million reasons I could give people to watch them. But like I pointed out before, if I look at these last couple of tournaments, they actually haven't gone quite as far as I thought they would have, or they could have done more. Or it feels like they're not somehow tapping into that fifth gear, as it were. So what's your take on this, Freya? Like, does Heroic, do they kick in again next tournament? Do you see them, do they get overtaken by others? Where do you think Heroic goes from here?
I mean, I hope that they can go back to what you were saying, because I think for me, the pleasant thing about seeing them, coming into the sort of, I guess, like LAN light atmosphere where,
Yes.
there's no crowd, they are on LAN. It was good to see them continuing that, the kind of style that they famed themselves for online with, KDM being aggressive, not afraid to sort of bring out double orbs, like all those sort of nice little things that they were kind of known for. I felt like they did transfer some of that across to LAN. So I think I don't really know what the key is. I think just at the full finals, it was just a bit of a disappointment to see KDM not being up to his usual self, just in terms of what he was putting into the server early on in the tournament.
Yes.
But I know he's feeling, it's not an excuse, but I know he's feeling a bit under the weather. You didn't see him having that kind of same hype and energy in some of the earlier games. Obviously, that Team Liquid game absolutely blew that out the window. I also wonder, the question of stamina does come up, because they had to play that Liquid game, and they did have a game break, so it was different to the Vitality on
That's
the final
true.
day.
There was a match in between, yes.
Yes, yeah, and then they went on to Stralis, which, again, you don't, when we're talking about the tactical side and the preparation side for Heroic, I'm sure they're not like how big were, where it was like, we're literally going to anti-strat for everybody.
Sure.
But there wasn't that much tape at that point of this new Stralis to go off of, right?
No.
So I think that was potentially something that caught them off guard. And I know that's not like it's not like a trend that we've seen, because it's just been so different opponents for them, right? But I think I do want to give them a little bit of maybe benefit of the doubt for that, coming into a difficult situation in terms of that format, in terms of some players who aren't used to playing in front of the crowd and aren't used to doing those kind of long stints of days in an arena where you're not comfortable in your home environment. I think potentially, I don't know, maybe just because I like watching them as a team and their kind of play style, maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I hope that they can kind of refine that form coming into early. Again, I don't know when the next tournament that's actually going to have a crowd is, but going into 2022, I hope that this has kind of taught them the lessons that maybe they need to learn from being in that LAN environment, right? Like those younger players who, I don't think we saw a huge drop off in form. It wasn't like we're coming in and seeing, them absolutely just bombing out and not being in the zone. But I do think it was tough for them in that particular situation, going up against a team that you just don't really know that much about, right? There's not much tape on them, and it being in the same day, so you don't really even have time to compartmentalize that, to sort of build some strats. I don't know about but I think there's kind of a little part of me that thinks that was a big reason in terms of their particular full finals.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to justify, honestly, because as you said, like, Kadian was feeling very under the weather. I talked to him a couple of times, and that obviously that is a couple of players were actually from other teams as well.
Did they say it in interviews publicly, or was it just privately? I never really saw this as like a storyline.
I think some players mentioned it, or at least it was touched on. Yeah.
I
knew that Blame F said it, but Kadian himself, did he actually say it in your interview with him or anything?
I don't think he's. Yeah, I don't think he said it in my interview with him, at least. But he definitely was like, even if you saw on some of the player cams, like he was coughing occasionally.
So I asked to speak to him, and the answer was no. He's feeling under the weather. That's where I knew it from.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I got that for 3 days basically when I was trying to talk to him. So for sure. But there was also a couple of other players that were feeling under the weather. Obviously, like everybody was COVID tested, so it wasn't that. But it was more that like it was a general trend. So I don't know. I think for Heroic, it's not necessarily that I'm not afraid for them as a lineup, in the sense that I think that they definitely still can showcase that they can play well at a top level. Again, I think for me, they once we reach crowds again, they need some form of a coaching change to be able to bring the players up, because without that, I don't think they can really move past where they are at the moment. Yes, this tournament specifically, they had the sort of test of fortitude where they had to play matches back to back. or I guess spaced out on the same day. But even then, I think even once we reach another crowd or a crowd environment, I don't think that we see them overcome, like we might see them get to the grand final, but I don't think that they overcome a team like Na'Vi or Astralis if they've got more practice in, or a new Vitality. I think that the tenure of those players in stage environments for some of them is just going to be able to overcome the sort of inexperience of Heroic, because right now they've really only had 2 main stage showings to be able to work off of. I do think IEM Winter will see them play better just because it's going to be behind closed doors the whole time. So I think that will give us a sense more of where they stand as a team without any of the outside influence of a crowd.
And the fact that Na'Vi aren't there as well, I think that's like actually the biggest interest for me in terms of, obviously it's not going to cement who's at the top, whatever. I think we have to take it within that context of, okay, who are the other teams? Where should we be placing these teams without the sort of chaos of throwing a Na'Vi match in there and going, oh, well, we know they're going to lose out. Oh, they've gone down to the lower bracket. Might be an upset match there, whatever. So it might, I guess, create a bit more, weirdly a bit more stability in terms of some of the results. I don't know. We've got to know the other teams coming in that we haven't really seen. But I'm just interested to see it in that context on its own.
No, I think, by the way, you make a very valid point, because as you say about stability, the real problem is this, is like when you meet Na'Vi in the tournament, especially if you've got like a single Olymp playoffs, that just determines when you lose, doesn't it, at the moment? Like, realistically, we can't know. If you meet them in the quarterfinals, you might actually be the second best team, but you bad luck. The bracket screwed you, so I'm with you on that one. And also, I have noticed that is a key thing you need, because obviously in the old circuit of LANs, we had so many LANs. There'd always be a LAN where, like, say, Astralis or wherever the number 1 team is, doesn't go. But you'll notice, this is why it's a good test. That doesn't always mean that the second best team wins, as Team Liquid 2018 showed you. If everyone remembers that ESL New York tournament where all the other good teams were there, but Astralis went to that blast, I think it was the Istanbul one actually, right? And because on paper there was no Astralis, it was like, right, Team Liquid, no problem, guys. Now you guys can finally get that win. And they still managed to find a way to lose to Mouse Sports in that final, with Chris J doing that fucking mad round on Mirage in the 5th game. So what it showed you was, like, it's not that it shows you that Team Liquid wasn't the second best, it just showed them they clearly had some problems in finals. It wasn't just about facing Astralis. So yeah, I would be very interested to see that in itself. I think it's even a good angle for Heroic for this next tournament. It's like, look, if there's no Na'Vi, now what excuse is there? You've had a couple of LANs, you've had your moments that were good, bad, there's no crowd against you this time. On paper, you're just supposed to go and win the tournament. Like, then we don't have to hype you up as the second best. Just go and win the tournament with no Na'Vi, and it naturally will make the storyline come along. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.